Hello guys, and welcome to my May reading wrap-up. So, this month I read so much. I read a total of 9 books. 3 of them were audio and 7 of them were physical books. I read a lot. Here's all of my physical books. So this is what I read. So the first book of the month, I read Ice Planet Barbarians. I read this in one sitting and I ended up rating it pretty low. I rated it 2 stars. I don't rate a lot of things 2 stars, but I rated this 2 stars just because, man, I couldn't get past how there was no plot. Me and my friend were talking about this, and really, you hit a climax towards the end of a story, right? Well, with this one, you hit it immediately, and then you already knew the big conflict, and then the big conflict just disappeared. They crash landed on this planet, and then it was just, the rest of it was just her and the alien were together. So I don't know. I don't know if that is just my opinion or if it was just not great. This is what I said. Look, I'm not saying it was the worst book I've ever read, because I've read worse. But with this one, I just felt like half the book was an epilogue. I feel like that's just a little bit weird, right? Also, how is she not losing her mind the whole time? Why does it feel like Beauty and the Beast, Stockholm Syndrome? She should not be in love with this alien. And it's just like, are they bonding over trauma, or are they bonding because they love each other? I'm so confused. What did I read with this? Because I really just don't understand. I guess the concept had potential. I'll give this book that it had potential, but everything just felt so rushed, surface level. I didn't have time to care about the characters before we were suddenly in another explicit scene. You know what I mean? We're dealing with so much trauma. What are we doing? I will give her this. I love how Vectal is obsessed with her. But are they just trauma bonded? I don't know. I can't get over that. I gave this 2 stars. We're going to move on because I feel like I have some other good books. The next book of the month was Unravel Me by Becca Mack in the Playing for Keeps series. This is the 3rd book of the series. Honestly, I just felt like it was super sweet in the way that it doesn't try to be too dramatic, but it pulls you in just enough. The romantic pieces of this were very sweet. The spicy scenes were also very sweet in this. I personally really liked this one. It's not my favorite. I think it is super emotional and they genuinely bring a different story into the book. I don't think I've ever read a book that has these sorts of scenes in there, so I feel like the plot was definitely different than the rest of the series, which made it stand out a little bit. I ended up giving this a 3.75 star because it's not my favorite in the series, but it was a decent book. So for the next book of the month, I read Funny Story by Emily Henry. This book is about a woman who ends up getting, her name's Daphne. Daphne ends up getting engaged to this man. She thinks she's super in love with him. And then right before the wedding, her fiance breaks up with her to be with his childhood friend. His childhood friend also had a boyfriend in which they also broke up. In that, Daphne ended up moving in with him. His name is Miles. I love Miles. So she ended up moving in with Miles just because she needed a place to live because she was living with her ex-fiance, and the ex-girlfriend of Miles was also living with him. So she moved in with Peter. And so Daphne ended up moving in with Miles, and we see their relationship grow, mostly as a friendship first, and it evolves into something just so beautiful and cute and so unexpected at the same time, because they're trying to make the other couple feel kind of jealous because they get invited to the wedding, which is kind of bullshit. But it was just such a good book. I think this might be my favorite Emily Henry book of the whole series. I have them all right here. I definitely feel like this ends up being my top, and then this one ends up being my second top. I don't know where these other ones sit. All I know is Happy Place ends up being on my bottom of the list. But this is crazy because it finally hit my top Emily Henry book, which is crazy. I ended up giving this 4 stars, which in the grand scheme of things, I feel like I could probably end up giving this more. I would end up probably giving this 5 stars. Am I crazy? I feel like that's a big jump to go from 4 to 5, but I feel like I ended up really loving this book. And even going back, I remember so much of it, and I feel like I have such huge feelings towards it. I think I'm going to give it a 5 star. I think that's kind of crazy. I just think it was good. It's not like they were trying to reinvent romance with this book, but it definitely feels like this is kind of a truthful story. They had me cracking up because that man was honestly, he was operating on vibes and avoidance tactics for half the book. And I fucking love that. So, funny story was the next read of the month. The next book of the month was Fall With Me by Becca Mack. That is the 4th book in the Playing for Keeps series. This was easily my favorite book of the series. I ended up giving it a 4.25 stars. This one ended up following Jackson and Lennon. I had been anticipating Jackson's story for the whole time since we've had these books. So I was really excited to finally get to his book because I knew he was going to have a good story because all he talked about was being a player, and those players fall the hardest. And he did. He was an absolute simp the whole story. It was even better than I wanted. I just really enjoyed it. He was so down bad. It was horrendous from the start. The tough hockey player act definitely fell apart because all he wanted to do was be obsessed with this woman. I felt like it was just such a good story. It just showed how in love he was with Lennon. Yes, I basically said I think what made this one stand out for me was the relationship actually felt believable underneath all of the chemistry, and it was sweet without being cheesy, emotional without being dragging, and the banter was so good. I loved it. I think Becca Mack just really knows how to write friend groups and relationships that feel fun instead of just dramatic all the time. There is pretty dramatic things in her books, but they're not to the point where I'm like, really? I don't think that could happen. Anyway, Jackson, the man that you are, I liked it. I like this book. So I'm not going to change my rating just because I think it is just a 4.25, which is actually pretty high for romance for me. So, yep. For the next book of the month. Oh, yes. I listened to The Darkness Within Us, which is the 2nd book in the Shadows Between Us series. This is by Trisha Levenseller. I loved this book. I loved the Shadow King. I loved our main character. She was so badass. So I thought we were just going to get more of them. So when I started listening to the 2nd book, I was kind of disappointed knowing that it was the sister, because in the 1st book, they make you not like her. So I wasn't excited to read it. I definitely liked the 1st book more, but this one still had moments that I enjoyed. So it just didn't have the same emotional intensity that the 1st book had for me. So a little upset about that. The vibes were still there. There was definitely still dark, romantic, slightly unhinged scenes, which makes you like the 1st one so much, but it just felt less addictive than the 1st one. So like I said, this one follows it follows the sister. The male main character was really good in this book, but it was also just unrealistic, the story, and I can't tell you much because it gives away the book, so I'm going to just leave it at that. I think the 1st book set the bar so high that you're just disappointed. I ended up giving it a 3.25 stars, which I think I would just give it a 3 star. I don't think it was a 3.25. I think it was a 3 star. So 3 stars for The Darkness Within Us. Right, ladies and gentlemen, what did I read and why was I into it? Zaid. I feel like I can't really say much because it's just like, what did I read? We'll just start with, I had a really hard time getting into this at the beginning because it all caught me off guard. It seemed like the non-consensual aspects of this were not going to let me get into the book at all. And then I had to stop and question if I really just wanted to keep reading, but all of the people on my Instagram said to keep with it and I will start liking it. And they were right, because I did like it, and I'm definitely excited to read the next one. I know the next one is super dark compared to this one, and this one was already dark, so I don't even know what to think. I dog-eared this page, and I don't know why, so let's see. I don't know why I dog-eared this page. I will say, though, that he did it to her with a gun. And she was crying. That was a hard part for me. After that, it got 100% better. I ended up getting really invested in the plot once we got past the halfway mark, which I feel like is kind of far into a book for you to finally get into it. But it was good. The suspense, the creepy atmosphere, and the obsession, everything was just chaotic in a way that weirdly worked. And I think that's why I like that. That being said, I definitely liked the plot more than some romance elements. I still struggled with the parts of it morally. So that was never going to be a 5-star read for me personally. But I admit it was entertaining and ridiculously bingeable once it picked up. Like I said in my review, overall, dark, unsettling, messy, and surprisingly addictive. Definitely check the trigger warnings before going into this though, because it's a lot. I ended up giving the book a 3.5. So I think that's pretty decent. So, Haunting Adeline, dark romance, read the trigger warnings. Okay, divas. So I personally have read The Deal. The off-campus series, I've read the whole thing, at least just the first 4 books. And I've read The Deal before, so this is my second time around reading this, and I just got this very cute, very special edition copy, so I had to show it in this video. I like this so much more reading it the second time around. I don't think I even rated it the first time I read it, but I reread this. This was so good. I reread it because of the show coming out, and maybe that added to a little bit of my obsession, but I'm literally just slow because this was so freaking good. Garrett is peak book boyfriend energy. He is funny, confident, obsessed with Hannah. He is secretly soft underneath all of the ego, and personally, exactly the type of fictional man that unfortunately works for me every single time. Hannah was still one of my favorites because they actually felt fun together and not just being attracted to each other for 300 pages. They felt like their relationship was super sweet and innocent and lovely, and I loved her whole entire personality. I love that it speaks so much on her healing journey and what she's going through in her situation, because it's such a deep and dark situation that I feel like you need to take care of when you're writing a book, and Elle Kennedy does that. She writes it so well and takes so much care of the character in doing her justice, and I love that. Wellesley is one of my favorite girls in Off Campus. Obviously, Allie is my favorite, but Hannah's such a strong character, and I love her. I love Wellesley. She's funny, she's strong, she's awkward at times, which makes her real. She's just such a real person, and I love that. I love how he is also going through so much as well, and it's not a light subject for either of them, and Elle Kennedy writes it just so well between both of them. Yes, I remember, so in the books, the characters say things that feel dated or misogynistic, and I don't love that. That's why it makes it a not perfect rating for me. The show, on the other hand, does not do that, which makes me love the show because they changed that language to fit today's world and not being so misogynistic, and I personally love that. But that is why I did not give it a perfect rating. But this holds up as one of my favorite romances to date. And rereading it reminded me of why I like it so much. Because it's not that I didn't like it before. I loved it. I just didn't rate it for some reason. So reread this. It was really good. Let's go, ladies. Oh, I rated it a 4.25 stars, which is really high for romance. Oh no. Yes. Ooh, that kind of hurt. I'm getting old. Anyway, guys, my next read, Binding 13 by Chloe Walsh. This was the first book of the Boys of Tommen series. This follows Johnny and Shannon. This book absolutely wrecked me. It
They
was
ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
To read. It's replaying in my mind. It was devastating, vulnerable, emotional at times, a lot of times painful at times, and somehow it is incredibly sweet underneath all the heaviness. Shannon's story was written just so beautifully, so tragically. I don't know how Chloe Walsh wrote it so well, but the anxiety, the fear, the intensity of her feelings is just written so well, and the way it affects her relationships and that part of her life. It all just felt so heartbreakingly real without ever feeling too exploitive. I wanted to hug her the whole entire book. I felt so bad for her. And Johnny being so freaking obsessed with her made it perfect. He was so down bad the moment he laid eyes on her, which made this just so vulnerable because he knew something was happening to her the whole time and he didn't want to give up on her, which is exactly what Miss Shannon needs. And dare I say it, I think he might be my book boyfriend number 1 right now. The things he says. I highlighted so much of this book, and most of it is just the way he speaks about her. The way he feels about her, fucking inject it into my veins. It was so good. He had the popular athletic energy, but underneath it all, he was just down bad for this girl from the start. I loved it, and he's hot. So I also commented that I loved that the romance never magically fixed Shannon. It was more about giving her safety, support, and someone who saw her fully without trying to change her. And that made their relationship hit so hard for me. This book is so long, but it made you want so much more, and it was just emotionally heavy. But I was invested the entire time, and it's one of those stories that will forever stick in your mind after you finish it. I was trying to read books after this, and all I could think about was reading the next one. So if that doesn't make you understand how good this book was, then I don't know what will. I don't know what mind I was in when I rated this, but I rated it a 4.75, 100% a 5-star read. And yes, I give out 5s like candy, and I don't care because that's just me. And I feel like if I have an emotional connection with a book like I did with this one, then I feel like I have the ability to give a 5 because it's what I want. And I don't really have a system of why I rate things the way I rate things, but I feel like if I can't stop thinking about a book, it definitely deserves a 5-star, and that was this book. So anyway, lots to say about that one. Last and final book of the month, which was also a really good read for me. This was The Powerless by Elsie Silver. This is a sports romance, kind of cowboy romance, because I think the Chestnut Springs has a lot of cowboys, and they're all hot and great book boyfriends. But personally, for me, Jasper ate it up. And so did Sloane. I loved Sloane. Weird that I read so many books this month about marriages that have failed or engagements that have failed. I don't know how that happened. It's not like I chose these books because of that. Actually, my makeup chose my books. So my makeup must have been feeling in an engagement ending mood because I read 3 books this month that had marriage ending plots, which is just really weird. This one was good. It starts with Sloane getting engaged and almost married to a man that is doing a business deal with her father, and that is the only reason why she is getting married to this man, which is just ick. It's ick. She has always been in love with Jasper since the moment she laid eyes on him at 10 years old. There is a miscommunication trope, but It's more of they just don't realize that they love each other, which was good. It was good. The spice and romance in this book was top tier. I have not read a spicy scene like these where I have not cringed, and these were not cringy in the slightest. I felt like it was written so well that I ate this book up really quick. The relationship development was probably my favorite part because it felt natural. They're spending a lot of one-on-one time with each other. There's a one bed trope, which it hits well when you get a one bed trope. It's probably one of my favorite tropes. Watching the characters slowly let their walls down made that romance hit so much harder. I personally love how Elsie Silver writes her men. And she really knows how to write men who act all guarded, in control, while secretly being completely obsessed. And fortunately, it works on me every time. So I ate it up. This book was a quick, easy binge. I also highlighted inside this book, and there was just some really good scenes. Let's see. Yes, I commented and said, the male lead trying to act unaffected while clearly being gone for her was elite behavior, honestly. It ended up being one of my favorite Elsie Silver books so far. Not a perfect 5-star read for me, but definitely one of those romances that is ridiculously enjoyable to get through. Yep. I am definitely going to be reading the rest of the Chestnut Springs series. I just got Reckless yesterday, so I am super excited to continue with this series because I feel like I love Elsie Silver's writing. So those are the books that I read this month. I ate up the books this month. They definitely were all really decent reads. I started off with a really bad read, which was a 2-star, but the rest of the month I feel like they were all 3 stars and higher. And a lot of them were actually 4 stars and higher. So I feel like this month was a really successful month, and I'm really excited to read in the month of June because there are some good books on my TBR right now, and I'm super excited to read all of them. So I will see you guys in the month of June for the June monthly